It's going to be a busy week in the studio. We've got a lot to do. I'm still waiting for the resin for this guy, the snow globe. And when that comes in, we'll be making a cast of that. Al has dropped another Tiki necklace job in my lap. And what makes this one interesting, I've done several before. You've seen a couple of videos on those if you've watched earlier videos in the channel. But what makes this one interesting is that he set these up for casting. He made these pieces for production casting, and he set them up a little different than I would have done it, which means I'm going to have to set the production mold up a little different than I would normally have done it. Still going to work. What he did will work fine, but it's a little different. Forced me to use some different techniques, and that's good because I'll show them to you. So we'll do that. Looking at how Al set up these tikis, he put his pour sprue at quite an angle, and he has a nice big open sprue, as you can see. Thing is that when you pour resin in, it shrinks as it cures, and you can see it in this cupping. It's not flat. See how that's not flat? None of them are. This one's really pronounced. Look how cupped the resin is. So in order to mount this onto the base of a mold case, I'm going to have to just sand these flat. Simple little process, but it's got to be done. And we'll set them up in the proper orientation in the mold case for pouring 100 of these. And so now what we have to confront is an issue of orientation. It's always about how do you orient a part, a model, in the mold. So if I put them in here like this, end to end, that's how I would be inclined to do it. But Al has arranged them so they're really a really hard angle. And that makes sense because when I pour them, all the details are going to face down. So you're not going to catch any bubbles in this details, which is why he oriented it like this. But for making a mold, that gives me kind of a problem. And the problem is, if I line them up end to end like that, let's say I line them up all like this, end to end. You can kind of see what the problem is. I'm just going to prop them up like that. The problem is if I am pulling the mold closed, if the cut lines are here like this, and I'm pulling the mold closed, I'm not really getting optimal parting line pressure on each piece. I don't like that. That does not make me happy to pull from the ends when they're it's almost like you're pulling along the parting line. That is not what you want. You want to squish like this. You want to squish so that you're front to back on the parting line, because your parting line is going to be running right down here, right up these things, right along there. So I'm not going to cut anywhere near any of this detail on this figure. It's all the detail, all the parting line is going to run right along this edge right there. So I'm inclined to put them in a mold like this, side by side, like that. But no matter how I orient it, see, this is a really tricky one. No matter how I orient it, I don't get the optimal front to back parting line that I'd like to see. So that is definitely a consideration for how I'm going to lay these molds out. What I may have to have is a mold case that puts the parting line pressure where I want it, across the face and the back. I want the pressure coming like this, where I'm pointing my fingers. I don't want it coming like this. So I'm going to have to design the mold case so the pressure is going to close the molds like that, pushing just in like my thumb and fingers are pushing in. That's what we're going to want to see, and that's how we're going to design this mold case. I knew that this would be a rather unique mold case because of the difficulty of closing it from front to back. So I went on Procreate and I did this drawing. You can see the curved surfaces here, and they are what's going to provide the pulling pressure. That curve, it's like this mimics a round mold, or at least comes as close to mimicking a round mold as we can conveniently fit these tikis into. So what I did was I went ahead and I built this box, and again cut the pieces out and sanded them up a little bit and assembled them with drywall screws. I feel like, you know, that's something you guys don't need to watch me do, but if I'm wrong and you want to watch me do that, you know, hit me up in the comments below and tell me. I'm just trying to keep these videos under 7 hours in length. I built this box and it is all waxed and ready to go. And how these boys are going to sit inside here, they're going to fit right in like this. And I'm just going to kind of lay them in here so you can see what we're going to do. One of the complexities, however, is I'm a little bit concerned about the writing on the back. So I'm going to pre-fill this lettering on the back with rubber. I'm going to pre-coat the backs. That way I don't have to worry about, I know the front's going to fill up just fine because all of the details facing up and the bubbles will rise away from the body of the casting. So that's just not going to be a problem. But the underside in these, especially in these little tiny letters, you see the little tiny letters says Pittsburgh. Those could catch little micro bubbles if the rubber rose badly against them. I'm going to make sure it doesn't by pre-painting those, and then we'll get those in place. And then once all those pieces are put in place, this cardboard surface is the thing that's going to create the top curve. So I've got these opposing curves that kind of mimic the round shape of a mold, and that's the thing that's going to give, I hope, a nice even pressure to the parting lines. I mixed up a little pot of rubber, see that? Little pot of silicone. I'm going to try a little experiment here. We'll see if I get away with this. I want to put an absolutely microscopic amount of this accelerator into this rubber and then apply it really fast. But I mean, it's got to be a tiny amount because this is a tiny amount of rubber. So very tiny amount of accelerator. Let's go. Let's mix it up. Here we go. Let's mix it up. Quick, quick, quick. Get this out of the way, get all our junk out of the way. Let's go ahead and mix. I'm not worrying about de-airing this tiny batch of rubber because I'm going to pour on such a thin amount that it's just any bubbles I'm going to pretty much brush out or rise out. It's not going to be a worry for me. But what is going to be a worry is getting the stuff on there quick. Just want to plaster this backside up so that I know that I am not going to catch bubbles in this lettering. I don't want bubbles in the lettering. On the other hand, it's not going to hurt my feelings any if this stuff cures really quick. So I'm just working that rubber down into that lettering, making sure that I am not catching bubbles. Okay, that looks pretty good. That's one. The troublesome surfaces, the areas where you think you might have problem in a casting, when you're molding it, you can pre-paint it and make sure that you get to the rubber into those detailed areas. And this works just fine. And you can even let this rubber coat that I put on here cure, like overnight or for a few hours. It can gel or it could cure, and it will still bond. You can work this rubber in layers. You don't have to do it in a single shot. Making sure I got them all done right. I think this one's a little thin, so let's put a little more rubber on there. All right, we'll let these cure up a little bit, then we'll sticky wax the pieces in place, and we are ready to pour the final mold. These are ready to go. They're nice and cured up. So let's fire up the old waxer. Just a blurb of sticky wax is all that it needs. Want these things touching pretty close. And you see how it's not quite touching? I want there to be a little bridge of rubber in there so each one of these is a separate well. But I do want them to be close together. How are they looking this way? Oh yeah, they're gonna be perfect. And that sticky wax just holds them perfectly in place. No worries at all. Let's pop that on in. Make sure they're positioned right. All right, that looks pretty good. Not bad. Now you'll notice I've left a good amount of room on the sides So we do have cut plane on both sides, cut plane in between. They fit in there nice and tight. Now, time to put this piece on. It's waxed on the inside. Get it into place. Make sure I have the green markers in the green marker place, so I have everything marked up so it's easy to assemble. Let's get this thing screwed on. And because it's all pre-drilled and pre-assembled, it goes together perfect. Excellent. Now it's just a matter of bending this around and sealing up the edges. Sticky wax that thing up. Sticky wax up the other side. Okay. And bring this around. You can see how this bows out. See how that bows out there? That's not going to work. So what we want to do is we want to hold it flat, nice and flat here, like that. So we'll just go ahead and just use this ruler, which will be just fine. And we'll clamp that on there with a couple of clamps. One clamp. Clamp on the other side. And that is going to hold that in there. And all I have to do now, and I'll do it off camera, is just run a bead of wax along here to seal that up. And we are ready to pour rubber. Let's get this thing done. I'm going to pour right down this side. Right down like that. You can hear the workers working outdoors. That's the plumber putting in some pipes right outside the wall here. He's doing his thing. All right, let's keep pouring this thing. This might be the last pour, I'm not sure. I don't know. Might need another pour. Looks like we might need a topper batch. Every single mold you pour is custom, and it's a different size, a different shape. It's really kind of hard to calculate the exact volume you need. So what I just do is to do batches. It takes a little longer, but then you're very unlikely to mix up too much rubber or way too much rubber. And you come close to getting the right amount you need. Oh man, we are close. I'll say that for us, we're really close. It'd be great if this much chunkage would get us over the top, but I don't think that it will. We could see what a couple of pieces of chunks driven down in there will do for us. But I just can't really see it getting us over the top. Stick them way down in there. It's going to help. It's going to help. That's why we keep chunk rubber. So we can just jam it down in there and help fill up the mold with old molds, save a little money. Yeah, it's definitely getting us closer, but I still think we're going to need a topper. We are going to need a topper. I can feel it. No biggie. We'll give it a topper. I've yet to find a better way of pushing rubber chunks down into a mold than with an X-Acto. Just eases them right down in there. Start them in and just push them down. You can control them really well, but at the same time you can let them go. You let go of the rubber really easily, so you don't have any problems. Boy, I've shoved a lot of rubber down in there, huh? Shove some down in here. Man, I'm close. Man, I'm close. Hate when I miss by like, with just a fraction of an inch. Just a fraction of an inch too light. Just almost got them all covered here. All right, topper batch. Topper batch. No need to be particularly careful. We can just dump it. We can just fill this mold on up. We'll have a nice roof, a nice cap of rubber on top of the parts. I'll always like to see that. You just don't want the parts to be too close to the edge. It's not good. I'm going to call that a win. All right, this mold is going to sit for 24 hours, and then we're going to cut it open, see if we won or lost. All right, this mold is cooked. It is cured, nice and hard. Let's pull the clamps off. They did their jobs. Thank you, clamps. Get rid of you guys. The ruler did its job. Got a little bit of rubber on it, no worries. And now we can pull this mold apart. Let's pull this mold apart. Let's see, now the question is this just gonna come peeling off of here? Yes, it is. I wasn't sure. I didn't know if I'd have to work to get that off or if it would just pop right off. That was handy. Beautiful. All right. Okay, no excuses for us. Let's do this thing. Now we want to take this apart carefully because we want to reassemble it. And that's a good long one. Here we go. We definitely want to reassemble. Interesting how this is so hard and firm and the drippies are still sticky. They're still tacky. That small mass cures last. A small mass cures last. All right, that should pretty much just all come out. Let's see how we do. Oh yeah. And this should just peel right on off. Oh, how much do I love beeswax? More than life itself. Look at that. Pretty cute. I have never in my life made a mold that looks like this. This is pure experimentalness. And we're gonna have to, we'll cut it open and then we're gonna have to set it in a cradle like this to cast it. All right, where's my scissors? Where's my scissors? Get out the scissors. Let's do a quick trim, make it pretty. All right, now we're ready. We're ready to cut the mold open. Let's do it. Let's cut these open, see what we got. All right, let's find this first, where we're going here. Start jaggy as always. Make my jagged cuts. Now I want to find, and that's going to be the tricky part, I want to find where I'm going right away. I want to know where I'm going to. All right, time seeing it. It's always hard in a big block mold like this to start. Always hard to start the cut. This is what intimidates a lot of folks. It's just this part here that's really intimidating because you don't have much rubber to grab a hold of and you can't quite see where you're going. And so it's tricky at first. First one's the hard one. After that, they do get easier. So that's something to look forward to. I found the edge. Found the edge that I want to cut down. As always, I'm always worried that you can't see what I'm doing because I have to face it. I wonder if I can get him out, how far I have to cut to get this guy out. Don't know that until I get one cut. Will he come out? Will he come out? It's a pretty simple piece, but he's big on the, he's got a fat head. Oh. All right, I got that first one out. How'd my parting line look here? It's gonna close up nice and tight, okay. All right, now I've got to cut through each one, but that gets progressively easier and easier because see now, as I hold it open, I can see where I'm going. And that makes a big difference in terms of how I'm cutting, because I can see exactly where I want to cut on each one. So that's a huge help. All right, I'm gonna go through and I'm just gonna keep cutting. Last one, I'm cutting the last one out. Let's pull it out. There we go. There we go. All right, let's take a look at this mold. Wow. Gotta confess, it was a little bit of a difficult pattern to cut. I struggled to cut this one open, but I think we got it. And now we should make an experiment and see how it falls together. All right, got my rubber bands. Let's see, what size of band are we gonna put on this? Probably the skinny ones. I'm gonna say it's gonna be the skinny ones. Okay, so right away, that's interesting. I think what's gonna happen is we're gonna have to have a back wall. This wall here is a little crushy for my tastes. So what's gonna happen is when we do the actual business, we'll probably have something that strengthens that firms that up across here. But let's just pretend it's there for now. I just want to see how these parting lines fall together. They look like they're going to fall together just fine. Oh yeah, that's what we want to see. Nice, clean, thin, nice parting line like that. Oh yeah, you can just see it's going to come together. Just super. Just kind of tease it into place, and you can see the parting line is going to come together. But you also can see why I want the holding pressure like this across here. I don't want it. I want it pulling this way squeezing. It's also squeezing this way, but I think it's going to give us just exactly the right kind of hold that we want. And the idea always the same idea, even, gentle pressure. It always comes back to the same idea. You want to get clean parting lines with no flash. If you have uneven pressure on your parting lines, they tend to open up just that little bit, and that gives you flash, and that gives you something you have to sand off. Hey, I don't like what's happening up here, but you know, I don't care. That whole part gets cut off. I think that we are gonna have nice clean parting lines. All right, I'm pretty pleased with how this mold came out. If you like this video, hit that like button, and don't forget to leave your comments and questions below. I realized we didn't get to that snow globe. I'd hoped to do that this week, but the resin never came in. I think it's nearly Christmas and deliveries are slow, and I think that's what's going on. The stuff is just not coming in. But as soon as that resin does come in, we'll be pouring more clear resin. Next week, we're gonna build a cradle for this, and we're going to pour resins. Thanks for watching. I will see you next week.